Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Kundalini Awakening radio program that we put out through Kundalini Awakening Systems One. My name is Chrism, and I'd like to welcome you to the program. And I'd like to welcome everybody who's calling in and who's starting to tune in right now with the online users and the people calling in on their telephones, and, of course, the people listening to us in the archives. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. In the Western Hemisphere, I should say the Northern Hemisphere and much of the, some of the Southern Hemisphere as well, we're coming into the holiday season. For the United States, it's Thanksgiving, and yet I think, throughout Europe, the United States, parts of Asia, South America, and other countries, starting to prepare for the festivities of Christmas. And this always brings us closer together with our families. And for those of us that have Kundalini, our families can be somewhat of a challenge for us as we experience the transformation and the changes that the Kundalini activation or awakening will bring. Before I continue, though, I'm going to ask Lana Seeker, Mary Jean, if the sound is coming through, if you can hear what is being said. And just helpful not to be talking to the air here. Mary Jean seems to be typing, and we'll see. Sound is good. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Mary Jean. Thank you, Atlanta Seeker. Very good, very good. Uh-oh, it says I'm reconnecting to the server. Hopefully, we've all reconnected with the server. Hello. Look at that. Once again, Mary Jean, Atlanta Seeker, I just got an information on my screen that we had to reconnect to the server. So I would like to know if the sound is coming through again, please. If you could, here we are. Good. Okay. Very good. So as we come closer to the holiday time period, I think it really is a valuable lesson to be learned in coming together with family members that are not Kundalini awakened or activated, and yet you are. You are hearing things that they don't hear. You are seeing things that they don't see. You are having experiences that they cannot have, and furthermore, they cannot understand. You see, this is a very big deal for the person that's coming into, the holiday season and, gathering around the table for Thanksgiving here in the United States, or Christmas, in the month of December, towards the end of the month of December, for other, with their families. And so what I want you to really, really do is to look at this as an opportunity for tolerance, for gratitude, for forgiveness, for service, selfless service, so that you are helping people, whether they are of your family or not, just through the love that's in your heart for humanity, for this world, for fellow travelers upon the path of life and the path of evolution towards Kundalini awakening or activation, which is where you are right now. And so the scenario with getting together for the holidays is a bit of a test for some of us. And for some of us, it's an actual tribulation. And I want you to really begin to look at this in a different way. When my father was alive and I would come to the family would come together, and I always, because of my Kundalini, I could feel levels of intuition that perhaps were not shared, most certainly were not shared with the rest of my family. And I would just tolerate them. I would tolerate their judgment, I would tolerate their questions. I'd answer them as truthfully as I could. I would tolerate and I would be grateful for the opportunity to just be with my unawakened family in a way that allows them to just have that radiance that grace is bringing through me into them. And this is a true gift of the holiday season is for people to be in your presence, people to be within the radiance of your presence, and that radiance be filled with divinity, with divine understanding, divine forgiveness, divine love, divine tolerance, divine caring and compassion and selfless service, not only for your family, as I mentioned before, but also for complete strangers on the street or your friends, or even just for the environment. After a windstorm, maybe writing that little tree in the yard, or not killing that spider, or not killing that insect, or not spraying insecticide on your plants, or things of that nature. Just allowing an appreciation of life to exist for you and within you. And so it's very important for people to understand that Kundalini represents life. It is a life engendering process, and let that be part of your gift to Grace and to all the different individuals that I've mentioned before. And you're going to, as you sit around the table, or you're around the tree, or you're in your church, or you're, wherever you go into these festivities, you will be surrounded with, if you're starting to verge on the telepathic, you're going to have a real cacophony of thoughts, a real kind of a confusing level of thoughts. Even if you're just around the table getting ready for your holiday meal, there will be a level of conversation out loud, and yet another level of conversation that is, if you don't have filtration, that is coming at you as kind of a cacophony of different thoughts from different family members or friends or strangers. If you're just walking down the street, or if you're doing some sort of shopping, your heightened state of awareness can really bring in levels of thoughts as within telepathic conditions into your mind, and don't let it confuse you, don't let it frighten you, don't let it make you think that you're wrong, or that's you're mentally unfit, or that you're mentally ill. None of these things are true. It just means that you're starting to come into levels of telepathy that science and medicine and psychotherapies and counseling and all of these mind sciences don't yet recognize, because the evolution with science is particularly slow. And the only thing slower than that is the evolution of spirituality within people. So don't judge yourself based upon the strange occurrences of telepathy that you might be experiencing. One of the things you want to really understand is that when you first develop levels of telepathy, that may not have a level of filtration attached to it. And that's where you can get this real staticky, snowy, or almost like you're in the middle of a big room with lots of people having different conversations. Once a level of filtration is in place for you, then you can identify, specific thoughts with a specific person. But until that occurs, you might be in that crowded mall or that crowded room type of scenario that's in your head, as well as outside of your body. And so it's something for you to understand, something for you not to be afraid of. You're not going crazy. You're absolutely fine. Everything is going fine. Everything is proceeding along the line of things that need to come for an individual. So as you gather around with family members, do your best to be tolerant. You're going to have that crazy uncle, and he's going to be saying off the wall stuff. If you're here in the United States, and a lot of the talk around the holiday table is going to be about, oh my God, what's going to happen now that Donald Trump is the president here? What is going to happen now that we have this total narcissist, bullying, seemingly psychopathic dictator in charge of our country, and the nuclear warheads that our country has, and oh my gosh, I can only imagine what it would be to be another country watching this powerful country of the United States, electing type of an individual into office, and if you're not on good terms with the United States, well, what's going to happen to you? That type of a scenario might have a direct effect on specific populations, or it can really change the whole structure of the geopolitical climate upon this globe. And so a lot of that kind of talk of a fearful nature can be coming, amongst the families as they're around the holiday table. And for you as a Kundalini awakened person, I think you really need to understand that part of the gift of grace that you have is to give selfless service in the way of creating an environment of fearlessness, creating an environment of tolerance, creating an environment of trust in the divine, trust in that which is expressing through you. What we don't really know is the impact of so many people now coming into a conscious awareness of Kundalini within them. And how does that affect the geopolitical climate and environment upon this world? How does that affect the sociological impulses that drive the political process, that drive the decisions that are made in levels of control within governing a country? And it definitely has impact. And so, these are things that you can consider to yourself silently, if necessary, and out loud if you can, amongst your family and friends, if they're not going to, put you in a psych ward or incarcerate you, for your opinion, which can happen in some of these countries, and certainly even possible here in the United States. So it's these are the gifts of grace. We are able to perhaps reach into a greater level of understanding, of comprehension about the karmic attributes of geopolitical events such as this, and what are the lessons that are being taught to large populations? What are the lessons that are being taught to individuals which make up these large populations? What is the level of fear? What is the level of self-aggrandizement? What are the levels of say, toxic behaviors that can be molded or shaped by the divine into a positive outcome? Positive meaning that, it's beneficial for the environment, beneficial for nation states, beneficial for large populations of people and this planet. So some of this talk that you have over the holiday table, you as a Kundalini person can also be very, very, very careful in how you insert your wider knowledge, because you don't have any proof of what your Kundalini is telling you. Even though it's absolutely true, you have no factual journalistic truth. You don't have a what, where, why, who, and when. You don't have those 5 answers, or those 5 questions answered, which is, the typical type of thing that a journalist would use as a way of validating any kind of a newsworthy story that they would want to publish. And so, because you don't have that, you can't say, oh, well, my Kundalini told me that such and such and such and such is going to happen, unless you're talking with people who understand that the Kundalini represents a level of truth that goes beyond the levels of truth that journalistic requirements, would entail. And so you want to understand that as you bring up, if you bring up levels of information that come to you from your Kundalini, that perhaps those at the holiday table may not be able to metabolize at this time. And so you need to be very discerning about what it is you say to your loved ones that comes from a Kundalini conduit within you. Try not to frighten them. I mean, try not to say, oh, Donald Trump is going to, have such and such an effect, on this world and whatnot. Here in the States, people are already, at least on the on the East Coast and the West Coast, people are already scared enough. You don't need to exacerbate that any further. So be kind and considerate with your family, your friends, and perfect strangers when it comes to that need that we sometimes have to give the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you the Kundalini. And some of you will not be able to withstand that. Some of you will just give the truth that the Kundalini gives you and just kind of let the effects just kind of speak for themselves. And blessings to you for that. I totally get that compelling. I get that understanding. I get the need for the truth to be given. And especially for those that are earlier in the Kundalini awakening, that desire to give unfettered, what's the word? The whole truth and nothing but the truth to anybody that will hear it. That's very, very good. It's very, very admirable, but it can also be very, very alienating to people who may not be able to understand or to metabolize what it is that the truth of your Kundalini is saying to them. And before I go any further, it is my great honor and my great joy to introduce the woman who really owns this show. This is a gift of grace that she gives to the Kundalini populations, and she comes from the Emerald Isle, otherwise known as the Republic of Ireland. And I'd like to introduce her right now, Amelia Santara. Hello.
Hi, Chrism. Hi, everybody. I do not own this show. This show is owned by the Kundalini, I feel. All I do is provide the platform, and really, Chrism, you own the show. I am merely the person who provides the platform and does a little bit of help in the background, which is a great honor for me to do. It's a great privilege. But I do not own the show. So okay. That I need to say that because that is the case.
And how does your family handle the holiday spirit, knowing that you have Kundalini?
Oh, my family. You mean? Well, I have two families in a way. I have my family of origin, and I have my family. My children. I have 6 children, ranging from 30. How old is he now? 35. All the way 36, all the way down to 13. So in the early days, Chrism, I suppose the holidays would have been spent with younger children and my family of origin. But in later years, really, it's just my own children. And they're all very aware of my Kundalini awakening. And really, it doesn't make a difference in the context of which you spoke. It did do with my family of origin in many ways because, when I was a child, I suppose growing up, I was always very different to my family anyway, and I learned very early to kind of keep my stuff and my feelings to myself because my family had a sort of a collective thought pattern. They all tended to think the same way, and I kind of thought a little bit different. I could always hear, in inverted commas, what they were, what was being said, and I could feel the dichotomy really between me and, let's say, the rest of the family. So I had a lot of practice really before my awakening about the differences between me and my family. So I had good training in that before the awakening came, so that when the awakening came, I didn't have that urge, to sort of rush out and tell everybody about it. I knew quite well what the reaction would be. And so sometimes it can be difficult when you're with groups and when I am with my family, but typically no. And when I'm with my children, it's fine, Chrism, at Christmas. Actually, it's a wonderful experience because the dynamic of my family of origin is not the same dynamic that I am with now,
I understand. And how do your children handle it?
handle? What's to handle?
How do they metabolize your Kundalini condition?
They handle it very well, Chrism. It's just part of the dynamic. That's part of me. I suppose they're used to it by now.
Okay.
They're very what would I say, respectful and considerate and open. There's no ridicule. It's just part of who I am. So it's fine.
Do you ever find an opportunity to mention this to your family of origin?
The Kundalini,
Yeah.
some years ago, yes, I did. Around the time that you were coming to Ireland for the first time, what year was that? 2010. So we're going back, 2010, 2011. I had to mention it to my family. And I was reluctant to really, because I had no huge desire to share it with them much. But because you were coming and because I was going to be advertising that I was organising a Kundalini seminar, I had no choice but to bring it up. And so I did mention it to my father, who listened and didn't really pay too much attention. Had my mother been alive, I'd have been in big trouble. I always say my Kundalini waited until she was dead before awakening, because that would have been a different scenario, Chrism. My sisters, I have a few sisters, and one of them actually came to the seminar. Remember Deirdre? She was a little bit open. I think she received Shaktipat and had some phenomena. She would have had some strange things occur to her in earlier life. My other sister was petrified. I mean, she couldn't even talk about it. But after that, Chrism, very many things began to happen in small groups with my family. The Kundalini made itself known in ways such as healing. There was a lot of ridicule with my sister and her husband for a little while. And I wasn't there trying to convince them, but things would occur. And they would be given examples of, or demonstrations rather, of the presence of Kundalini. And and that was mostly done through healings and through other things that would occur. My sister's husband was rather curious about it, and he would ask questions, and then as I would begin to answer those questions, would be inclined to knock them, buts, and I didn't really get caught up in any of that. I'd say it's quite okay. There's, I wouldn't go there. So then with that man, things began to happen. Things began to happen, and so now he doesn't speak about it that much. He's quietly, I think he now, let's say, believes. Let's say,
Yeah, he has
it's
a stronger
not discussed
understanding.
much now. He does.
Yeah,
indeed.
my family is far less understanding. My mother, of course, is very understanding about it, but and my father, when he was alive, he was at least accepting of it. We didn't talk about it as much, although, a couple of holidays at the table, my brothers and sisters would just come right out and say, what is it you do again? What's the Kundalini? And of course these people have full access to the internet, and they can read, what I do. And I just, I think they were, I don't know, searching for extra levels of information about it or whatnot. But they don't really, it never comes up anymore, and which is fine with me. It's very good. I'm very happy to do that, to not talk about it. And I truly feel that Kundalini has the ability to really fracture a person's reality matrix, and even fracturing a reality matrix a little bit, meaning what they believe in, and how they interact with their environment, how they how they feel the privacy of their thoughts are, and how they depend upon science to prove everything, and if you get sick, you go to the doctor. You don't, healings don't exist except as you sign the form on the way out of the hospital, healed and released, and these types of things. And if you begin to imbalance any part of that reality matrix, they become quite fearful. And my family is pretty much along these lines. And so I don't bring it up. They bring it up sometimes, but I don't bring it up. I just kind of there as the crazy uncle. I'm the crazy uncle, and to their kids.
Well, I have to. I'm the crazy aunt, actually, as well. I need to say that about my sister's children. But Chrism, going way back before Kundalini awakened, maybe during my activation phase, but I wouldn't have been aware of Kundalini then. I was the only person I knew who had a natural birth back in the 80s, who didn't want an epidural, who wanted to breastfeed, who didn't put their children on antibiotics or cough suppressants way before it was cool to do that, So I was always a little weird. Always a little bit strange. Yeah. And I think that was all and out of the context of my family. So I look back on that and I think it was Kundalini training, really, Kundalini guidance, way before I became consciously aware of it. And so, being... you're the strange uncle, but they're your nieces or your nephews. They observe, I think, at least I feel in my case, in a different way to our siblings. They don't have the same baggage, I think they see. I think they maybe see more clearly than our siblings do. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my...
No. I kind of get what you're saying, because they've known me since they were little babies, my nephew and nieces, and they trust me. They have less of an encumbrance as little kids and children to having an expanded awareness. But as they grow older and as they continue to adopt the understandings and the comprehensions of society, and as their parents continue to pound into them what the parents feel is real, more of a schism develops, and they begin to really go into this world as perhaps their karma has intended for them to go. But little seeds have been planted, so if these children ever develop Kundalini symptoms, and they can get through the addiction to science and the addiction to specific levels of understanding about what is spiritual and what isn't, they might be able to metabolize the information a lot better. But, currently I have very little contact with them.
Mm.
And I think that's basically because of my brothers and sisters and their spouses that kind of want to keep them at a distance. I think they know intuitively that their own reality matrix might be destabilized, and because their reality might be destabilized, therefore their children's reality might also be destabilized. And I think they tend to become very protective of those areas, and so. And I'm good with that. I totally understand that, and I just want them to be happy, and so I don't spend every holiday season with my family. Sometimes I just spend it alone. I just kind of like walk around and give a healing or give off radiance that can be very helpful for people during the holiday season. This is the time of year where most of the suicides take place, and I think it's important as a Kundalini individual not to just sit there and watch the James Stewart, play the guy that that helps the angel get his wings. I forget, what is it, The Good Life or something like that, that movie. Not to just sit around and watch football games or soccer games or sporting events, but to go out into the public, into the malls, into the poorer districts, into the impoverished areas, and to give of your radiance. It may not be what their egos would want you to give them, like a handout or money or a gift or things of that nature. And if you can do that, then wow, that's a great thing to do. But if you cannot do it, give that radiance, give that grace, and allow that to occur. And I was just moving my chair, so I don't know if people are going to tell me that you hear the chair or not. I stopped moving the chair. So,
yeah.
Did you hear the chair?
No, I didn't, Chrism. It's also a time, isn't it, where families. There's with alcohol, for example, with people suppressing things, that it can be a very unhappy time. We tend to think of it in an idealistic way, but it's not.
Well, I mean, it can be for some people that are having marital problems or, financial problems, job-related problems, that, people that have put all of their hopes and dreams into a box of money, and maybe there isn't a whole lot of money in that box, and they can't give to their family or friends or relatives what it is they feel that they must give, and the pressure can become so intense that they break and they buckle under that self-imposed egoistic pressure. And yeah, this is the time of year when things can be really, really tough. I'm sure it happens that way in Ireland too.
Oh, I think that's a universal thing, Chrism. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a time to be grateful for having nothing. This is to be grateful for that. This is, within a Kundalini context. Some of you that are having Kundalini right now may be absolutely homeless or maybe so destitute that you can't even pay the rent, or you can't put food on your table, or certainly not a huge Thanksgiving feast or Christmas type of holiday feast. But that doesn't mean that you have nothing. Kundalini, though it may not have tangible physical presence, is one of the greatest gifts that divinity can give to a person. God's hand on your shoulder, Goddess's hand in your heart, is a huge level of gifting for an individual to have. It's so huge that it can drive you crazy by even having it. And I'm going to go down here to Miss Brooke Robertson. And Brooke, what is your take on the pressures of the holiday season and having Kundalini at the same time?
I don't. You know what? I just got here, so I wasn't sure what we were talking about.
What is your Shakti
sounded like we were
say
talking
about
depression during the holidays.
Oh, yeah, depression during the holidays. What does your Shakti say about that?
Well,
can you put your mouth closer to the microphone?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having a little difficulty with my pup today. But, yeah, it's definitely alive and well, these pressures. If you go into the stores right now, there's a lot of frantic, I don't know, it seems like greed is what I'm picking up on. Like everybody's got to get everything, and it's just a weird vibe. And I can see how, with the Kundalini, we're so sensitive to everything as soon as we step outside, and we can get bombarded with all of these different frequencies of from the heart, the thoughts, the motivations, and so it seems all amplified right now. So I think for myself to be careful not to let any of that stuff come in and start to own it for myself, because it isn't mine. It doesn't have to be, feeling that way. We can be thankful for, like you said, nothing that we might not feel like we have very much. I know for myself right now, it's like that for me. Very isolated and that sort of thing. But yeah, I was just out a little while ago, and it just seems like the overall vibe is it's funny. It's like greed. I was in a store, so maybe that's what it was. But it's like everyone was running around frantically, stressed out, trying to get this dinner prepared for tomorrow, which in the U.S. is one of the biggest holidays, the Thanksgiving holiday that we're having here. So everybody's running around doing that, and I can feel it.
Yeah, it's definitely a vibe. And can you imagine the pressure that is on an individual that does not have the money to have these things?
Well, I don't know. Like a lot of the homeless people that you see around that don't have the money, I don't really know that I can't speak for them because I'm not homeless, but I don't know if they're having pressure or if they're thinking about other things at this point, I don't know.
I think there's a level of pressure, a level of guilt that some of the really destitute folks feel, especially if they're just newly destitute, newly laid off from work or things of that nature. And certainly
these are man-made holidays and stuff, though. Do you know what I mean? So it's not necessary to really go into it.
All holidays are man-made.
That's what I'm saying. This doesn't have to be the feeling of destitute. We don't have to feel that and buy into it because it's really not true.
Right, absolutely not. But the social pressures tend to push one into a specific direction towards, being with the herd, shall we say, the herd mentality. And Aunt Jean is having a great big feast, and what am I to bring? What am I just going to bring myself and just consume everything, and I'm not going to have something to offer? And I just, I'm a great supporter of not feeling that your presence doesn't count. I think
you
people
could
need
bring
to
a gift
understand.
that you made, or you could bring the spirit of, love into that.
Right. And well, do you have any other comments that you'd like to make about the holiday season and how it affects you on a Kundalini level?
I think for the most part, the Kundalini in me has moved me away from a lot of these types of activities, not in the sense of moving away from it, but just sort of putting me in positions where I wasn't participating in them in the way that the rest of society was. And so in the beginning, I don't know if that makes sense to you, Chrism, but I think the Kundalini has done that with me. And,
well, you spent a lot of holidays alone, right, in a big house all by yourself.
Well, I sure did. And, if I were to, that was all by design. Now, if I were to have gone into that, and it was hard for me in the beginning, and this is what I was getting ready to say, because, my mind and my ego wanted to feel bad and alone, and, why is my life like this, and why is it so strange? My life has been very, very odd. But, when the more you get into your connection, you understand, okay, and that maybe she's trying to show you a little bit of perspective on these types of days that we call holidays, which are created by society that aren't necessarily the end-all, be-all. It's taught me a lot, and I think that the Kundalini has pushed me away from these things just to gain perspective and to have some learning around them, as well as many other things. But I think that could be happening for other people as well, to keep that in mind, that maybe it's part of design.
Well, Alana, you're right.
Not to go in. Huh?
She writes, she says, it is a paradox that a holiday that is supposed to be based on gratitude causes a greed vibe. Interesting.
Well, that's exactly what I was noting when I was in the store earlier. It was just the paradox, that exactly that, that I was just kind of aware to keep a vibration of not doing that. I'm not running around with a buggy with 10,000 things in it. I'm not doing that. And I feel like each holiday that has come up in the last several years, I'm actually doing something very, very different and kind of aware of my attitude around the holidays. It's not about those things. It's about something else. And maybe that's part of what Kundalini people need to be doing during these times, to emanate and radiate the other frequencies that are not the greed and the loneliness and the depression and all those things, but really hold a pattern for people, the truth.
For love and truth. Agreed,
for love
folks.
And truth.
I just want to thank you for adding that into this conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, you're welcome, guys.
And I'm going to put you in the Shiva Blue, and coming back up to Centaura. Do you find in the like say in and around the downtown areas of Cork and whatnot that there's that kind of hustle and bustle of greed in, say, during the December holiday season?
Yeah, we don't have Thanksgiving, so we're spared that. I feel we go from Halloween to Christmas, so I think you have it tough there, guys. But yeah, I agree. I remember last year standing in a mall, or a mall as we would say here, and just standing still and feeling everybody else just completely stressed and hectic. And I remember I started smiling at people and making eye contact with people, because for a while I wanted to run out. I remember I had that experience a couple of years ago as well, but last year it was very strong. I haven't really been to anywhere yet this year. So, I think what Brooke said about the spirit of love and the other things that we can do is vital for Kundalini people. As Kundalini parents, when we've got children that we're introducing to Christmas time and all of that, I think it's hugely important that we demonstrate to our kids ways of giving that isn't based on money and isn't based on commercialism, Mike, yeah, and I would have done that, and I think it's very important that parents do that. There are other things we can do. We can make little card time to people, We can call in. We go to somebody's house, we can give a gift of calling to somebody. There's so many things we can do, and I think it's hugely important to do that, because otherwise, Chrism, we get swallowed up in this, horrible, it's like, I don't know what to call it. It's horrible anyway. So
well, yeah,
I think
a lot of people, I feel a lot of people succumb to this victimhood mentality if they're not able to live up to what their society's expectations are with regard to engaging in the holiday system. I was going to say the holiday system.
Well, there you go. Truth.
It seems kind of systematic at times. And I kind of agree with what Brooke and with what you're saying as well. That, there are many gifts that go far beyond the materialistic or the financial. And like you said, you can just sit with somebody, you can go to, what a beautiful selfless service gift it is to just go in and sit with somebody who is basically all alone in a convalescent hospital waiting to die. Or somebody who is just, a shut-in, somebody who's no kids, no family, no friends, they're just a shut-in, and they're just kind of unable for whatever reason, to go out and mix with the rest of society. And what a nice thing it is just to have the presence of another human being that maybe cares a little bit about them. What an interesting concept that can be. And certainly a very enticing, inviting gift from a Kundalini awakened person. Somebody who is literally being driven by a divine purpose to give the gifts of grace into the population. And so for those of you that are Kundalini activated or awakened, I want to really encourage you to sit with somebody. It won't cost you anything but a little bit of time. Sit with that homeless person, that man, that woman, that child. Sit with the convalescent, the elderly. Sit with the shut-in. Sit with somebody and give them the gift of your presence without judgment, without incurring any kind of an expectation of them. Just be with them. Be with them in a loving, happy, healthy way, and let that be a gift from grace through you to them. An interesting thought, don't you think?
Absolutely, Chrism. And, another thing is, holiday. What was that word originally? Was it holy day? And I don't mean religious. I'm just thinking,
I
it
agree.
probably was, or pagan, or whatever. But yeah, if we think of these holidays as holy days in terms of, walking on holy ground, being in a holy place ourselves, I think it's a thing we don't think of. We don't think of the word holy anymore in terms of how we go about living our lives and interacting with each other, and the holy work of living just every day.
And everywhere on this world is holy ground. I mean, literally,
yes.
The ground that we walk on, this planet that we're born into, is a incubator for holiness to occur. And holiness that is occurring to an individual is definitely the Kundalini. It is for that reason that we go skin to ground, barefoot to bare soil. It is. We are the holy ground, and the holy ground is within us. We are that holiness incarnate upon this world. And like you say, holy days. I think that's wonderful. That's a wonderful intuitive discernment about the word holiday, holy day. I think it's really, really truthful. And yeah, from a Kundalini standpoint, it's very, very, very strongly felt, because the populations will feel it strongly. And as I started out the conversation with telepathy, I mean, when you go out there into the populations, you will feel that telepathic, emotional telepathic vibe that Brooke was feeling in the market, and that you've been feeling in the mall, as you call it. Yeah, it's very, very, very important for Kundalini people to begin to reinitialize their role in society. There's more to it than you just sitting back and having kriyas. There's more to it than you just sequestering yourself off into a closet and watching the visions roll by. There is a level of interaction with this world that is not only helpful for you having a Kundalini experience, but also for those around you in society that may be having that may be just having a life experience. Helping somebody across the street, buying a meal for somebody surreptitiously. There's all kinds of ways that we can help our populations in very, very subtle and yet very, very significant ways. And I am going to suggest that these holy days, as you phrase it, Amelia, these holy days are days of selfless service days. These are SSD days, selfless service days. Days to give of your grace, to give of your caring, to give of your kindness, to give of that energetic, that divine energetic that is motivating you for the rest of your life now. This is how we initiate change in a global fashion. You know, this is a very, very important quality. Kundalini people have huge energetic footprints. And the more seriously you take your Kundalini, the more serious your energetic footprint is going to be. The more you surrender, the more you are submissive to the Kundalini. And I mean that with a capital S. You don't you're not, let me say, it is best for you not to let your ego run rampant as you experience the Kundalini activation or awakening. It is best to be as submissive, intelligently submissive as you can possibly be. Submission is a form of intense surrender. So let that intensity of your surrender be given, and through that intensity of your surrender, you are opened up to levels of divine guidance that before that level of surrender was achieved, you would not have access to, because you wouldn't be able to handle it. The more of you are to the Kundalini within you, to the grace that is changing your body, changing your mind, changing your spirit, changing your psychology, changing your emotional body, the more submissive you are to that level of grace, the more you have to give as a healer into the population. The more you have to give as a divine balance into the workings of this world. And as you come further into the Kundalini, you can kind of get an idea of how this world works. And it's not the idea that you hear on the radio. It's not the idea that you see on television. It's not the idea literally that you're reading on the internet. It is a very, very, very different idea and understanding of divinity upon this world. Divine incarnation is a key understanding. You know, Amelia, you are a divine incarnation. Brooke is a divine incarnation. iMagic Art, Mary Jean, Alanis Seeker, Joey, all divine incarnations. And I mean of the real deal. I don't mean that like, oh, everybody is a part of God. I don't mean that. As true as it is. I don't mean that. I mean a divine manifesting expression of grace that is being steered by the divine itself. The hand of God and Goddess are on your shoulders. They're at the base of your neck, steering you this way, steering you that way, but in a gentle fashion, in a way that allows you to presume the gift of choice. Are you moving things around there, Centaur?
I've stopped.
Thank you. Yeah, it gives you the presumption that you have choice when, in fact, within a Kundalini continuum, you may not have as many choices as you think. And basically, divinity is just watching to see what level of decision that you make and whether or not it is enhancing your Kundalini or resisting your Kundalini. And so it's very important for people, especially during these holy days, to begin to allow themselves to come into complete submission, total submissive to the divine within them, and to really, really begin to understand life from that vantage point. And I'm not talking about 50 Shades of Grey type of submissiveness or submission. I'm not talking about that. But if that is what it is for you, I'm not judging that either. I am saying that you give yourself in complete submission to the divine within. And if the divine within, orders you to do a certain type of practice that is really accentuating your surrender, that is really accentuating your lack of resistance, that really is accentuating your Kundalini process, then that is what you need to do. I don't care how against society's morals and ethics that goes, as long as you're not hurting or killing others or yourself, which wouldn't be the case. But, this is a big deal during these days. And just remember that your mere presence, helping somebody across the street, can stop a suicide from occurring. Your mere presence, your divine saintly presence, can literally save lives as you just walk the street. You just give people that much more self-confidence, or that much more self-love, or that much more of a drive towards being not so depressed, not so self-centered, which is, suicide's a lot about self-centeredness. That you can literally save lives. And I encourage all of you listening here in the chat room, those of you who have called in, and those of you who are listening in the archives, the future people, the people that are coming into these high holy days in the northern hemisphere, actually globally, to really begin to give yourself totally and submissively to the Kundalini, to the sacred male, sacred feminine within you. And the next question was, how do I do that? How do I give myself total submission to that which is already within me? The first thing you want to do is you can put a little altar in your room, and you can have any kind of a statue or a picture or a figurine, or even just a rock or a special shell or a leaf or something that represents sacred divine feminine to you. And give yourself to that concept. That's the very first thing you would do. Give yourself to that concept. Give yourself to that understanding. For those of you that have been raised in a very strong religious type of upbringing, I don't care if it's Christianity or Islam or Buddhist or Zoroastrianism or animism or spiritism or, any of the isms, you can take from that belief system something that represents divine femininity, and you can begin to give yourself to that, always holding it within, say, a high Kundalini context. And you begin to give yourself to that, and you begin to open yourself to the manifestation of that grace within you. This also can begin to build your Kundalini. Your Kundalini can also come to you in the dream life and begin to direct you into certain areas. It can direct you towards giving yourself to a teacher in a very submissive way. You can give yourself to a certain practice in a very submissive way. So, for instance, if your Kundalini told you to give yourself in a very submissive way to the practice of the safeties, well, then without fail, you would do the safeties, once or twice a day. You would do the 5 Tibetans. You would do the alternate nostril breathing. You would do the compression prayer. You would do the stillness meditation. You would do the devotion. You would do the selfless service. You would do all of these things without fail. And if you couldn't do them physically, let's just say you're at a job or whatever, and you just can't do it, well, then you do it in your head. You do it in your mind. It all counts, ladies and gentlemen. It all counts. And so you become as submissive as possible during these high holy days. And you let, through that submission, you allow yourself to be guided and given to the holy divine within you. And from that gift to holy divinity that you have now become, you become a greater gift of its holy divine expression through you into the populations. And I'm going to go over here to Brooke and see if she has anything she would like to add. Do you have anything to add to that, Brooke?
No, I don't think so. It's very beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, very beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And we'll come over here to Amelia. Do you have anything to add to that?
I'm just thinking how submissive. Am I being heard twice?
What?
I can hear myself. right. Submissive, I think, in a Kundalini context is a holy word. I mean, to be
Yes.
submissive to the
That's it.
Kundalini is a holy thing. It is a really holy
Agreed.
thing.
Totally agree. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah, well, let me come over here to someone we haven't heard from in a while, and I think it's well worth noting that this is Joey Frost. And Joey, have you been paying attention to this conversation? I'm having a problem here. Huh. Oh, Louise. Well, yeah.
I really appreciated the holy day of comment. I think that's a wonderful concept.
I agree completely. How are you, Joey?
Oh, I'm fine. And I am learning to be receptive and surrendering.
Well, I think we all are, really. Nobody's going to reach that level of perfection and still have a body. Once you reach a level of perfection within surrendering and that type of a scenario, you basically merge into divinity yourself, and that's a whole other program. Let me tell you. I just want to thank you, Joey, for your divine service that you give with Rosemary Goliath in the gifting of this knowledge and this information to the people of Minnesota, the people of the Twin Cities, St. Paul, and Minneapolis, and all the work that you have done, pounding the pavement, literally, going from coffee shop to coffee shop, putting up flyers and talking to people and giving them the effect of your regal presence. And I just want to say thank you for that. You're a great example of what I've been talking about during this program with selfless service and with going out and being with people and meeting people and things of that nature, and really participating with this level of grace that you're experiencing. And so I just want to extend a gratitude to you and to Rosemary and to Katie, to the other people that there in the state of Minnesota in those cities give to the populations.
Well, I have to say that Rosemary is an inspiration. She is thinking and giving and teaching Kundalini every minute of the day. Everything she does gets involved.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that a wonderful thing?
It's a great thing to be observing and following.
And I think that you also have that. You have those very same qualities, Joey. You just do it in a different way. You do it in a different way. And
thank you.
Yeah, and I want to thank you again. And do you have anything that you would like to say to the Kundalini people out there listening right now?
Just don't miss the Wednesday talks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back to Centara. Yeah. Compliments to you, Centara, on the holy days. I wasn't even going to say it. We could even spell it HOLYDAYS. So I'm open to the questions if you have collected any.
I have. Yes, tap
Here,
dancing.
I'll provide the music while you search it out.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay.
First question is not from the groups. It has been sent in.
It's not?
I have a question.
Not?
It's not from the groups. So you have. I have a question about perception. My perception really changed. Yeah, perception. My perception really changed since my awakening. I feel all these energies around myself, and my soul seems to be in communication with me in several ways. It is like I see these energies from persons in rooms. I remember it was the same as when I was a child. But I'm not sure if these energies always tell me the right. I don't, I don't know already on which perception to hear or not. I'm not sure if I should hear any of these, or perhaps it's my ego. I feel it with my whole body and with my heart. Every lie, every emotion, everything what is needed, and I am not sure if I can trust it. A woman told me it was emotional perception, that I can feel everything from my soul, and I don't know what it is. And it's from a Kundalini awakening person, Chrism.
Well, I think that emotional perception is kind of a simplification of it. It's actually a acidic skill of what I was talking about earlier. You're able to hear people's feelings, hear people's thoughts, and perceive the qualities within those feelings and those thoughts. And your job is not to interact with them so much unless you feel from a divine standpoint that you're compelled to do it. And if you're compelled to do it, you won't really have much of a choice about doing it or not. And so what you can do is you can hold space. You can hold divine space for people to have the freedom to think and do as they need to think and do. You can hold the space for their development. You can hold the space for their expression of divine development. Because as you're in that room with them, your radiance is flowing all over them. And it's going to have a direct effect on how they think, what they say, what they don't say. In many cases, people are saying the exact opposite of what they're thinking. And certainly during these holy days or these holidays, people are not saying what they're truly thinking, like, oh, I love that checkerboard tie that you gave me. Really, it's my favorite gift. When inside they may be going, oh my God, who am I going to give this to? So they're not, what are you doing there, Centaur? What are you doing? You're making all kinds of noise.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Chrism. Sorry.
Just a second here. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. So it's like, people don't always say what they're thinking, and yet you'll hear both ends of it. You'll hear what they say, and you'll hear the 180-degree difference of what they're thinking, and vice versa. You may hear what they're thinking, and sometimes they will say what they think, and sometimes, that won't have the most level of appreciation that you might imagine, levels of truth like that giving. In many ways, we live in a society of lies, Lies. Everybody is lying in some way. People lie to save the feelings of other people. People lie to hide the feelings that they're truly having. People lie when they say, I'm fine, when they're really not fine. Say, how are you, Chrism? Oh, I'm really fine, thank you. That's kind of an obvious lie right there. People lie every day as part of our societal communication. And so when you're in a room and you're perceiving different emotions and different thoughts, just hold holy space and realize that your radiant footprint is expanding itself in a diametrically, I don't know if diametric is the right word, in a circular pattern, like an oval of energy going down through your feet and spreading up through your head and then spreading outward in a multi-vectored radiance out from you. And those that you happen to be able to see and feel coming into your radiance, these are the perceptions you'll be able to have because your reality matrix may not be to the point where you can go through the wall and feel what the people in the next house are feeling, and then the next house after that, the next room after that, and the building after that. I mean, it takes a time to develop different levels of filtration and different levels of expansion to be able to really handle feeling so many different emotional and mental projections. And so you hold the holy space, and Kundalini itself will guide you to those perceptions that perhaps you would like to respond to, or that it through you would like you to respond to. Over.
Thank you very much, Chrism. The next questions now are from the group. I'm wondering if my breath getting stuck is a Kundalini symptom or just anxiety, or both. I recently heard someone else say it happens to them, which made me wonder. For many years, off and on, when I need to take a big breath, it doesn't come up all the way and is very uncomfortable until a few moments later when it will.
Yeah. This ties into a level of. Well, I mean, you have certain people can have apnea, apnea, which is a form of breathlessness, a stopping of the automatic function of breathing. Most of the time, we know it in the form of sleep apnea, where the breath stops and then all of a sudden there's a sharp intake of air, a minute or so later on. But there's also the level of breathing that doesn't give you the fulfilling deep breath that perhaps you want to have all the time. And this is not typical. You don't typically get to have that fulfilling, full lung full, deep breath like I just had. You get to have that all the time. And that's not something to be expected all the time. However, the more you do breath work, better this will become. So the more you do the deep inhalation like this, and you just hold it for a little while, the more you expand your lungs, the greater the level of air that you can bring in, the more expansion that you bring in, the greater level of air, the more prana you take from it, the greater the level of satisfaction that the active breathing can give. And so now, if you have done certain types of recreational drugs, some of these drugs can have an alteration on the autonomic mannerisms of the autonomic features of the body, such as breathing or defecation, urination, ingestion of food, metabolism of food, heart rate, some of these automatic functions, digestion, reproduction, things of that nature. And so if a person has partaken in those areas, well, that can also have an effect on it. But if you have taken those types of scenarios and you have the Kundalini right now, you just need to go to the sacred Shakti, the sacred feminine, the sacred mother, and ask her for a repair of this autonomic function of breathing. Don't feel that you're sick. Don't feel that something's drastically wrong. You don't need to go into dramatic, panicky areas. But you do want to merge with the Mother Kundalini and to put out that request for a greater level of healing within the mechanism of the breath. And this should actually help rectify that whole situation. Over.
It's lovely. Thank you, Chrism. Next question. What's the best way to deal with gastro-stomach problems? It feels like I have had a huge lump in my stomach the past several months, and the Kundalini energy is slowly pushing through, and as it's breaking up, I'm feeling more nauseous. I've been doing mudras and also forcing myself to belch, which seems to release a lot of gas buildup. But I was wondering if you had any other advice. Sometimes the pain gets really intense, like I've been stabbed in the stomach, and I get stuck clenching and tensing my stomach muscles, which doesn't help at all.
Doing some yoga can be very helpful for that. Doing some spinal twists on the ground can be very helpful for that. Depending on how far along the person is within their equation, they can be experiencing the unraveling of a Granthi knot. And that you're just going to have to really surrender to and be submissive to and allow it to occur the way it needs to occur, and don't shy away from any of the painful experiences that may come from that. But do try the yoga. Do try some of the gentle spinal twisting that can help. With the very fact that you're feeling the Kundalini working on it tells me that it is indeed being worked on, and that even though you may have tried belching or you may try fasting as well, the Kundalini is going to work on this thing for you. Just don't become a couch potato with it. Don't just, become very, very, very lazy or very, very de-energized and hopeless in a way. It's like, oh my God, I have to feel this pain. Oh my God, I'm not going to do anything for it then. Don't do that. Don't do that. You might also want to eat some bananas. Eat some bananas or avocados. I'm getting some downloads here. Eat some bananas, some avocados, perhaps some raisins, and allow a non-meat diet and a non-dairy diet to become your diet for a certain amount of time until you're compelled not to. Don't eat a lot of salt. And if you do eat salt, use that kosher kind of sea salt. Looks like cucumbers are okay. Zucchini is okay. If you have to eat a protein, then eat fish. Stand by. Citrus is good. Yeah. The more you focus on this with a fearful attitude, the worse it's going to get, because you're going to be putting a lot of energy into a place that is already saturated or being healed by the Kundalini. Let the Kundalini do her work on you. Don't try to help her. Even though it may be painful, one of the best things you can do is to experience the pain without trying to alter the methodology of the balancing that's being given. This is more easy. This is easier said than done. But do try to do that. I know of a person that will have severe kidney pain or liver pain sometimes, and you got to look at what your emotional status is and things like that. And that liver pain will come on really, really, really strong, and then it just recedes as the Kundalini steps in and finds the balancing point for it. And this may be the same exact thing with your second and third chakra, more of a second chakra thing. Look into keep yourself well hydrated. Try not to drink too much coffee or caffeine or high fructose corn syrup. Try not to ingest those. Look at stimulating in a clockwise fashion. Take your fingertips and go in a circular motion upon your skin about 2 inches above your navel, and just let that circular motion begin to work its way into the area that's causing you pain, and see how that helps with that. But for the most part, I want you to acknowledge the Kundalini. I want you to give gratitude for the Kundalini doing the work that it's doing, and I want you to step out of the way as best you can. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Could you just remind us about a Granthi knot, what that is?
You can get them at Walmart. I think they're on a Holidays special. Sometimes they're chocolate covered. Sometimes they're minty. But you can go to granthinot.com and you can purchase it online as well. They're not very expensive. They're about, in euros, they're like $50, so that means they'd be about €5. So there you have it. Oh, but you don't have Walmarts over there, do you? Okay. Granthi knot.
No, we don't. We're very deprived.
You can get deep fried Granthi knots as well, but never mind. So a Granthi knot is about a certain particular knot that has karmic identification as well as current ego Kundalini intermixed identification, and it is a knot that exemplifies the evolution of the individual from mundane into semi-divinity. And these knots have to be unraveled. They have to be unraveled, and you can help consciously, but the best way really for conscious unraveling of a Granthi knot is through surrender and submission. The worst thing you can do for a Granthi knot is to resist. This is why surrender is one of the most important things for a Kundalini person to experience. You typically have from three to five Granthi knots. It'll be depending on the person's equation, but that's typically what's going on with a person. And except if you're from Ireland, they have about 50 Granthi knots, but only if they live in the area around Cork. No.
Oh.
Just kidding.
No, you might be right.
No. I must say that the Sanatana practitioners, the Hindu practitioners will have a very, very different take on what I gave as a definition of a Granthi knot. Okay, they're sticking to their religion, they're sticking to their high holy texts, and that's perfectly okay. The Granthi knot in and of itself is a Sanskrit term, and so, but they don't necessarily have the Kundalini. They just have these really nice texts that they don't really understand from a Kundalini standpoint, and so their discernment of the true meaning of what a Granthi knot is may be a little challenged. And I'm going to come back down here to Brooke and see if she has any kind of an experience with her Granthi knot. Are you having any experiences with your Granthi knots, Brooke?
Yeah, I'm having a lot of experience. I might be with Santara on that one, having about 60. Did you say 60? I'm kidding.
What kind of experiences are you having that you can lay at the feet of a Granthi knot?
I don't know. I think that what comes to mind to say about it is what I'm being given about it, because it seems to be pretty hard to get through various blockages of it. It's going to require just a complete surrender, a complete lay down. And I think from there, it will take off or unravel. But I feel like what we try to do is get in there and try to analyze it and work it out. And, well, if this goes and we do this and we behavior modification and all that, which all of that helps. But I think with something as big as a blockage like these, for me anyway, what I'm getting in my downloads and my instruction on it is to do the surrender. And it's not easy. Just not easy. So, yeah. Can you hear me okay? I'm outside.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you just fine. But I didn't hear what you just said. So what did you just say?
Really? You missed the whole thing?
I didn't miss No. I had barking large dogs, and I had to let them in really quick. So I did hear most of it, though. Did you ask a question at the end of it? Is what I need to know.
No, just could you hear me was the only question I asked. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay, all right. Well, I agree that I like what you said about the laydown aspect. I think the laydown aspect is really, really important with regards to the Granthi knots. Becoming
not
extremely.
Easy, though.
Oh no, yeah, not easy, but so very much important. Yeah, easy to say, harder to do. That's for sure. Well, thank you.
A lot of it is surrounding there. It's fear that's surrounding these Granthi knots.
Can you put your mouth closer to the microphone?
I said it's fear that's surrounding these knots.
Well, yeah. Well, that's part of it for sure. How we respond to them. The fear will typically bring pain into the equation. Are you outside giving your pup a walk?
You know what? You guys aren't going to be able to hear me.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us in the program, Brooke. Thank you very much. Okay, and Amelia. One more question, please.
Well, I liked what Brooke said about, when we surrender, the knots will unravel themselves when we step away from them. I thought that was, I liked that because that rings really true.
I do too.
Okay, next question. Right, next question. How to differentiate between inner voice, intuition, from entity's voice in our mind?
Oh, yeah, you had to pick that one, didn't you? Well, I'll just read. No, I'll read what I wrote. This is how I responded to that question on the group. Your intuition is merged within the Kundalini, and yet a portion of it is still allowed to choose, at least to give you the impression that you're allowed to choose. This is where you can ignore any kind of communication that comes as a voice in the head or a dream or entities trying to guide you. Let your total and complete trust go to the Shakti, sacred feminine within you, as you are in the arms of the mother now, having a converged Kundalini. Ignore any conscious thought that doesn't feel it belongs to you. Your discernment of that feeling is your intuitive nature working for you. When it feels like it is not of you or from you, go straight into, say, a mantra of giving yourself to the Shakti and ignore anything else that may present itself. Seriously, ignore it. The Shakti Kundalini will not typically come as an inner voice, but as an all-pervading feeling and informative download that you have no choice in receiving. Other forms of entity communication are often corrupted or trying to form a contract of connection or control with you or over you. Ignore these. Your intuition will help you to distinguish the appropriate or inappropriate communication signal. Over.
Thank you, Chrism.
Oh, thank you.
Question.
Thank you. That's all I can do. I have to get ready for some visitors right now coming through, and I just want to thank you for collecting the messages. I want to thank Brooke and Joey for being live participants in the program. I'd like to thank everybody in the chat room and everybody who's listening in the archives, the future people. Do you have any last words that you'd like to say, Santara?
No, not at all, Chrism. Thank you.
Oh, well, I want to thank you, Santara, for putting this program together and for asking and collecting those questions. I want to let people know that they can go to Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 at yahoogroups.com, Kundalini Awakening ! On the Facebook network, Chrism.Kundalini on the YouTube network, and Kundalini Awakening ! In Google Plus as well. And I want to thank everybody for joining us this day at the beginning of the high holy days of the holiday season on this world. Thank you, Amelia.
Thanks, Chrism. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.